Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Englund, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as by donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. Bayanihan Spirit in Neepawa by Josh Jackson. The Tagalog word Bayanihan translates into community or camaraderie, which was aplenty in the town of Neepawa, as many area residents came out to support the 5th annual Filipino Heritage Celebrations. June 12th, it is an important day for members of the Filipino community. It marked Philippine Independence Day, a significant national holiday commemorating the country's declaration of independence from Spanish colonial rule on June the 12th, 1898. Members of the community made their way to Stony Creek School, Riverbend Park, dressed in full traditional regalia to raise the flag of the Philippines as part of the weekend of celebrations. Neepawa Mayor Brian Headley, Councillor Yvonne Sisley, and Agassiz MLA Jody Byram were all on hand to witness the ceremony. The flag-raising ceremony also included the playing of the Philippines' national anthem, speeches, and then guests were treated to pancit and buns. This year's theme for the Filipino Heritage Celebrations was Celebrating Filipino Resilience, Past, Present, and Future. One of the event directors and president of the PhilCan Association, Van Afwang, said this year's theme is connected to family. A strong foundation for resilience is family. The basic unit of society, the attention and love is focused within the family, a complete battle to the point of sacrificing our own lives to provide for the needs and wants of the family, he said. This year's 5th annual Filipino Heritage Celebrations carried more weight and meaning for all of those involved. Tragedy struck the Filipino community in April 2025 as a vehicle ramming attack took place during Vancouver's Lapu-Lapu Day Festival, a celebration of Filipino heritage. The attack left 11 people dead and at least 32 more injured. In light of the tragic events in Vancouver that highlighted the Filipino community, the celebration and volunteerism served as a powerful statement of strength, solidarity, and to hold on to the spirit of Filipino Canadians, said Afwang. Neepawa streets were lined with onlookers as the Filipino Heritage Celebrations took to the streets. Many floats cascaded around Neepawa's downtown, which showcased the unique culture and history of the different regions of the Philippines. Dancers danced, floats passed out toys and candy, and floats were intricately designed to reflect Filipino cultures and their home regions. He hopes those who came out to the celebrations developed a deeper appreciation for Filipino culture and a desire to learn more about what Filipinos can share and offer as a commitment to the community. This helps Filipinos who became Canadian citizens, immigrants, and newcomers feel more connected to our roots and allows us to share our heritage with the wider community. Included in the evening festivities were a live band, a raffle, supper, and a grand competition with more than 10 acts performing. It continued on page 19. During the ceremony, many community figures made speeches, including Dan Mazier, Riding Mountain MP, Malaya Marcelino, Notre Dame MLA, Jody Byram, Agassiz MLA, Ronaldo Opina, the Honorary Consul of Winnipeg, Brian Headley, Town of Neepawa Mayor, Ilsa Pineda, Executive Director of Neepawa and Area Immigrant Settlement Services, and Lyle Lowen, Senior Vice President for Farms Division, High Life Foods. According to 2021 Canada Census data, Neepawa had a total population of 5,685. Among the population, 2,940 were declared as a visible minority, which refers to whether a person is a visible minority or not, as defined by the Employment Equity Act, which defines visible minorities as persons other than Aboriginal peoples who are non-Caucasian in race or non-white in color. Within the 2,940, 2,600 Neepawa residents declared Filipino. Afwang said Filipino heritage is the legacy that our ancestors left us, and we want to pass it on to the younger generations. Passing the torch of culture signifies the transfer of cultural knowledge, traditions, and values from one generation to the next, or from one group to another, he said. It's a process of ensuring culture and heritage are preserved and continue to thrive through ongoing practice and transmission. And there's pictures showing some medals and some people dressed in traditional dress. And back to page 2. Neepawa not as accessible as it should be. New residents shares concerns. Town assures commitment to safety, by Casper Warehan. Patsy Kimball, a newcomer to Neepawa, has greatly enjoyed her time here thus far. As a highly independent and active resident of Kinsman Courts 2, Kimball has spent her 2 months of residency meeting the friendly and courteous people, taking in the variety of events Neepawa has to offer, and more. Neepawa, however, has not made this easy for her. The primary reason? The condition of the sidewalks. While sidewalks and roadways in disrepair can be a hazard to anybody, they provide additional challenges for those with limited mobility in particular. The height of pedestrian access points on sidewalks also contribute to the issue of accessibility. These challenges can range from inconveniences to incidents resulting in injuries. One such incident was experienced by Kimball on May 28. I had just gone by White's funeral home. I went off the sidewalk to cross the road and to go up the other side. When I went, because the lip is pretty high, it jerked me and it tipped me over the curb, the big curb. It tipped me over there and I went completely onto my side on my wheelchair, said Kimball. I scratched my arm and my knuckles, and I got a bruise from falling on top of the arm of my wheelchair too, so we had to call the ambulance. Kimball explained that she uses an electric wheelchair to get around. This is due to limited mobility caused by partial paralysis, which she is currently undergoing physiotherapy for. Kimball wasn't with company on her outing at the time of the incident, but 2 other individuals happened to see the accident occur. They came right up and they phoned emergency services for me, said Kimball. The people were really kind. A lot of people stopped to check on me. Corey Ford, the activities director for Kinsman Courts 2, also happened to be passing by the area while Kimball was being attended to, and stopped to stay with her until she was picked up by the emergency medical staff. The police had showed up right away, said Ford. Ford later added, we were standing waiting for EMS to come pick her up, and the police officer in attendance looked down and he said that he's never thought about it, but every road access off the sidewalk, they're not accessible. He said they are either too steep or there's a drop-off. He said none of them are safe, and he hadn't really looked into that. He also said that it was really good that Patsy was not strapped into her chair, because the chair would have been on top of her. And picking up those chairs is hard. They're quite heavy. Kimball noted that she had made note of Neepawa's sidewalk accessibility issues, as well as their disrepair since moving here. And on a separate occasion prior to the May 28th accident, her chair had gotten stuck and assistance from another pedestrian was required. I went to talk to the town twice before my accident, and I went again after the accident, said Kimball, who was not satisfied with the responses given. I was so disappointed. Kimball added, even to go to the town office, I had to push the door open and tell someone to send somebody out to talk to me. The reason Kimball was unable to enter the town office is that, while it does have a ground level entry that is accessible for other mobility devices, there is a raised segment at the doorway that makes the entry impassable for her wheelchair. Multiple problem sidewalk areas were made note of during the interview, including sections along Main Street, Hamilton Street, example near the Care Block in the Roxy Theatre, and Davidson Street near the RBC parking lot. Conditions of the roads are also a factor, as, according to information provided by Ford, scooter safety guides state that if a sidewalk is unsafe to use, that it is best to use the roads. And in Neepawa, as we all know, people back out everywhere. So going down Main Street, driving behind the cars with or without a flag, is worse than being on the sidewalk, said Ford. Kimball shared that she was disappointed by the responses provided by the town when she met with them, stating, "I want them to fix the sidewalks right away. I don't want excuses. I know there's money. They're supposed to be here to make things safe for us, and they're not." Dana Menzies, Executive Director of Kinsman Courts 1 and 2, also provided a brief statement highlighting the importance of accessibility considerations. Neepawa is a growing community which many senior citizens of the surrounding areas are relocating to, said Menzies. Neepawa offers medical services and everyday conveniences that smaller towns do not have. It is a shame that new residents to Neepawa are finding the community not as accessible as it should be. One item that was appreciated, however, was the recent implementation of the crosswalk lights near Giant Tiger. And there's a picture of Patsy Kimball, a new Neepawa citizen, and also a picture of a hazardous curb. And continuing on page 12, just a minute here. Curb modifications are planned but will take time. The Neepawa Banner and Press reached out to the town of Neepawa for their perspective on the matter. Colleen Sinchishan, Chief Executive Officer, responded on behalf of the administration. Sinchishan stated that the town acknowledges meeting with Kimball on a few occasions to listen to her concerns regarding the overall condition of Neepawa's sidewalks and curbs. Insofar as the specific issue she brought forward related to her accident, a work order was created for Public Works to determine the appropriate course of action, said Sinchishan. Ms. Kimball was told that depending on what kind of repair is needed, it might take a bit of time. Once a problem area is inspected, the degree of repair is determined and an appropriate course of action identified. Sinchishan explained further, adding, "For example, a reasonably quick repair can be made if the issue is relatively simple, such as an uneven edge. This can be remedied with the town's sidewalk grinder. However, sidewalks that have been broken, cracked, or crumbling can quite often require a partial or full replacement, which comes at a greater cost and is subject to scheduling and contractor availability. The town's current plans to address sidewalks that may be in poor condition is to, as in previous years, inspect them to ensure they do not pose a risk to those who use them. If replacements are warranted, these replacements are completed in a manner that would meet or exceed what is required under the legislation," said Sinchishan. Thinking ahead, as Neepawa grows, local planning documents take into account the need to connect the community with active transportation paths that provide safe and easy access for all users, including those with disabilities and the senior population. Sinchishan added, "As everyone can appreciate, there are many curbs in the community that need to be modified to create a reasonable transition for individuals utilizing a mobility device. As part of inspecting the sidewalks, the curbs will also be assessed and a target approach will be taken to ensure all curbs are safe and provide ease of access. Areas that pose the most risk to any individual will be addressed as a priority." The Neepawa Banner and Press confirmed with the town of Neepawa that there were funds accounted for in the 2025 budget that would target sidewalks. The total for that particular budget in this year is $70,000. Unfortunately, with the budgets being prepared at a time when the sidewalks are still covered with snow and ice, We were unaware of the extent of sidewalk deterioration at the location where Ms. Kimball fell. As a result, it was not included in the projects for 2025, said Sinchishan. Should we be able to accommodate a renewal or a partial renewal within this year's budget, we will do so. However, in the short term, every effort will be made to have Public Works repair the sidewalk to a safe and passable condition. The town of Neepawa has had an approved accessibility plan since November 24, 2017. According to Sinchishan, the document for this plan is updated every 2 years. This plan was implemented following this Accessibility for Manitobans Act that was passed in 2013, providing authority in support of measures, policies, practices, and other requirements necessary to make significant progress towards achieving accessibility in Manitoba by 2023. The town also developed a customer service standard on October 8, 2018, an accessible employment standard on November 3, 2020, and an accessible information and communication standard on November 21, 2023. The town is committed to ensuring the safety of its residents and visitors. As part of our asset management plan, we will be proceeding with a condition assessment of sidewalks and curbs in the community to outline a reasonable repair and/or replacement program, Sinchishan said in her final comments. While progress may seem slow, the financial burden to overhaul and retrofit a community's infrastructure can be overwhelming. Providing an additional comment in her own interview, Kimball stated that the town is lucky somebody hasn't been hurt more seriously due to the conditions around the community. I told them I was so disappointed in how they let this town go, said Kimball, who later added, "Look after the people. It's unsafe. This isn't a place to come and retire." According to Kimball and Ford, the town of Neepawa has not reached out to Kimball directly regarding the matter. And pictured on the left, a portion of Kinsman Court's 2 mobility scooter garage. Activities Director Corey Ford told the Neepawa Banner and Press that many residents who come to live at KK2 either own a scooter already or will buy one once they have moved in. Adjustments have been made to the garage to hold more scooters as it exceeds what was originally accounted for in the construction plans. And pictured at right, crumbling or heaving sidewalks are also an issue of accessibility and safety. The segment shown is located near Neepawa's Care Block and Roxy Theatre and is one problem area KK2 resident Patsy Kimball highlighted as being an issue for those with limited mobility. On page 4, freedom of speech is a high priority. Right in the center, Ken Waddell. Over almost 36 years as a publisher, I have tried to have an even and fair hand in determining our policy on letters to the editor. First and foremost, in almost every case, the letter must be signed by the writer. There have been over 1,800 editions of the papers we have published in almost 36 years. Way more if you count that we have published 2 and sometimes 3 papers per week. Since June 2024, with the addition of the Verdun Empire Advance, we have 3 editions per week. In all that time, I may not have published a letter writer's name to protect a person who might have been injured in some way by having their name published. Unsigned letters may have happened, but not often and not recently. Almost always, the letter writer's name goes in the paper. If a person is afraid of repercussions around publishing their name, then they should likely take up their case or complaint with the RCMP or their lawyer, not the local newspaper. Occasionally, we are told in person or in writing that we shouldn't publish a certain opinion letter. There have been very few times when, if I felt a letter was inaccurate, libelous, or inflammatory, then I or my staff and I have discussed it and said, "No, this isn't true," or might be libelous or could be inflammatory, and we set it aside. The following is a famous quote: "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." The quote is attributed to many sources, so I will leave it up to readers to seek out the original source. There are varying opinions on who originally said it. It wasn't me, but I do see a great merit in the quote. As much as possible, we need to have free expression, and the more the better. Ideas, theories, and behaviors all need considered and civil responses. Over and above that, letters get published, and sometimes people think and have told us we shouldn't have published a letter. That's a slippery slope, because not publishing a letter is actually censorship and restricts free speech. In Canada, one does not have to agree with an opinion, be it in print, on radio, TV, or the internet. Opinions are like noses, everyone has one. It's important that the local newspaper be prepared to publish news, columns, or opinion pieces and letters to the editor. I hate to think how restricted our society, our democracy would be if news, columns, and letters to the editor were not available to readers. But because you don't like an opinion, which is exactly what a letter is, that doesn't give you the right to request that it not be published. Rest assured, with many letters we have published, I didn't like either the content or the tone, the ideas or the claims. However, in the interests of society, democracy, and freedom of expression, it's important that, as much as possible, opinions and ideas be put out there for examination. Political parties, interest groups, and people in general want to restrict available information to their own echo chamber, so people will be restricted in the amount of material they have for consideration. They only want you to hear or read opinions they agree with. So it's up to news media in general, and newspapers specifically, to allow as much diversity of opinion onto the pages as possible. Remember, don't shoot the messenger. Homebodies by Rita Friesen. Be still, my heart. It's an old expression, one I grew up hearing, sometimes in a rather derisive tone. It's an admonition to oneself to calm down when overly excited. It can be used in romantic situations. It can also be used in everyday, ordinary occurrences. I used it twice this week. In our evening walk, Ari and I paused to speak to small gatherings on the street. The first grouping was painting the pride colors on the sidewalk outside of the Arts Forward building. Some were long-time trusted friends, some are relatively new trusted acquaintances. We spoke cheerfully, lightly, and with respect and appreciation for each other and the reason for the need for pride colors to become normal. Just a bit further down the street, we stopped to chat with the group working on the new green space between the Gillen Schmall office and our MLA Jody's office. This group is creating a place where folks can sit, share lunch, rest, chat, a safe public place honoring the dream team and its purpose. At both sites, ordinary people, my neighbors and friends, were working quietly and diligently to make our town, our community, our world a better, more caring home for all. For all. People with differing goals and aims, people with differing hopes and fears, people from differing cultures and creeds, people with differing genders. For all. My heart came near to bursting with pride. Be still, my heart. And then, just days later, I read and reread a letter to the editor by a person who grew up in this community, who holds dear their faith and creeds, and under smooth words cloaking personal beliefs, with smooth words creating a visible and damaging rift in our community. And my heart first hurt intensely, and then came near to exploding with grief. Be still, my heart. Too often I am silent when I have an opportunity to speak, partly because I am often in public view, partly because it can be challenging to speak as an individual, not being the voice of my family, my faith family, my community, or my world. I am speaking in my own voice for myself, for I cannot be silent. I can no longer be silent. My closest friend and travel companion is married to a wonderful woman who likes and trusts me. I have learned the cost they have paid for their love for each other and their marriage. One of my grandsons is engaged to an amazing man, and they have entrusted me with their marriage celebration. Okay, I get to officiate their vows. There is no way I want to plan more than that. One of my nearest and dearest is bisexual. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. Each one of these beautiful people love me, respect me, laugh with me, cry with me, encourage me, and plain accept me. What more could I possibly wish for? Each one of them carry their creeds and beliefs, sometimes much the same as mine. sometimes very different. It's no big deal. Be still, my heart. It truly can burst with pride and be crushed by injustice, all in the same week, all in the same place, all in my home community. Letters to the editor. We can have both. Shame on Neepawa Banner and Press for publishing last week's letter by Bryce Parrott. You gave Neepawa and area pride front page coverage last year, but tear it down only months later, continuing to prove you are not a safe space and part of the reason locals of the LGBTQIA2S+ community may still feel threatened. You accomplished printing a clickbait article, and it's not a good look. That being said, and it will unfortunately but not intentionally feel secondary as I'm focusing more on the second part of the published letter, I do agree with raising a Filipino flag for the month of June as well. Look to your dollar store with more for inspiration. Both can hang side by side. I'm so grateful last year's Pride celebration went off without trouble. A huge crowd gathered. There were smiles, conversations, dancing, pride, and, gasp, rainbows all day long. We were all a little nervous, but as the day progressed, the guards came down. This hesitancy shouldn't be felt around the world anymore, especially in a beautiful, diverse town like Neepawa. We won't let letters like Bryce's make us feel the need to build up walls again. The Pride sidewalk was just repainted outside Arts Forward, a good show of strength and resilience amidst the hate. I believe that letters like yours, Bryce, would be more likely to promote depression and anxiety rather than a rainbow pride flag. I don't follow the teachings of your God, and the ever-changing radical quotes on the signs outside of churches don't align with my beliefs. But I drive on. Take that advice instead of creating divide. Who gave you power to decide which neighbor deserves love? When a party leader condemns DEI initiatives and others followed, you're darn right it becomes political. A democratically elected leader is supposed to represent and protect his or her riding, province, country. When individuals raise concerns about not feeling safe where they live or work, it's my hope they have a strong leader's voice to advocate for them. In the past, sadly, in the current too, people were and are being threatened, beaten, or worse for speaking up and defending their rights to same-sex relationships, deciding to transition, deciding to publicly live as their authentic selves. This forced their voices to be silent for way too long. It's pretty sad that it's taken this long for political leaders to stand in solidarity with their LGBTQIA2S+ constituents. There are long-standing good ones out there, not bashing the whole political scene. To address the concern, it is not clear how they should treat one another. Like a living, breathing person such as yourself? Why should it change if you happen to find out someone's sexual orientation or preferred pronouns are different from your first assumption? A hello or a handshake are still universal greetings. If that's all you can handle, walk on. We don't need to learn how to be men and women in the traditional black and white defined way. We can learn how to be humans. Add some color to your life and be kind. Adrian Mack, Neepawa, Manitoba. And additional letters on page 14. Be the reason someone feels welcomed, heard, valued, loved, and supported. These are words I have continually had playing over in my head this week. These are words my parents instilled in me. I will start off by saying I was absolutely floored when I opened the Neepawa Banner last week and read the letter that was published. First, I agree in freedom of speech and the right that Mr. Parrott has to his opinion. What I don't agree with is his offensive speech, and this letter was truly offensive to me and many in my community. Secondly, Mr. Parrott, you do not speak for me or for much of this community. Neepawa is a community of inclusion and one that has its arms wide open for everyone, no matter color, race, gender, age, and definitely not one that cares about who you love or how you identify. I think some facts should have been checked before this letter was published, or a little fact check box after the letter to provide truth to the reader. First, I do agree that June has many celebrations, including Pride and celebration of Filipino Heritage Month. The facts that should have been checked is at Riverbend Park, both flags are flown and have been done so proudly by the town of Neepawa. Riverbend held a flag-raising ceremony to celebrate the rich culture and history of the Filipino community. Second fact that should have been looked closer at is who is at a higher risk of suicide. Since this letter stated your view was that there was a higher rate of anxiety, depression, and suicide in the 2S LGBTQ1 community, I did do my research, and a search took me to the Government of Canada website, published in 2024, which states the following populations with higher risks of suicide in Canada: men and boys, survivors, people serving federal sentences, survivors of suicide lost, and survivors of suicide attempt. Some First Nations and Métis communities, especially among youth, people who live in Inuit regions in Canada. Women have higher rates of self-harm. Self-harm can be a risk factor for suicide. Thoughts of suicide and suicide-related behaviors are more frequent among 2S LGBTQ1 youth and in comparison to their non-LGBTQ peers. There are a few reasons that the LGBTQ community is put at risk of suicide. Factors that can be the reason for the strain on one's mental health and potentially lead to suicide include discrimination manifesting as bullying, physical violence, rejection leading to isolation, lack of support from friends, family, and community, predisposition to depression, anxiety, or substance abuse. LGB individuals who contemplate suicide face the stigma of being different in sexual orientation and the stigma of suicide. What can reduce the risk? Effective mental health care and health care, community and school support, strong relationships with family and friends, and acceptance. So let's be clear. This flag is shown to show that the community is accepting, supportive, and a safe place. I am not sure why you think you need to treat boys like boys and girls like girls. Why can't you just treat people like people? Why can't you treat people with care, compassion, respect, and love for them as individuals, not for what their gender is or who they love? Why do you need to have certain specific rules and roles for genders? Sexuality is not one of the fundamental building blocks to help a child understand the world. The 5 building blocks of early childhood development are love, security, stimulation, nutrition, and health. Our community and our town promoting special interest groups is valuable. They promote all these groups and what they have to offer individuals who are visiting or who are new to our community. We look to our town council, who have been voted in as leaders and one that promotes equality. I will say another point in your letter I do agree with was, as Canadians, we have a freedom to express ourselves and put up any flag we would like. This, sir, is one of the lines that is true in your letter. I am proudly flying a pride flag at my home. Your offensive letter is your opinion, but if you don't like that, this community is inclusive and supportive. Maybe this community is not where you should be. I don't think anyone should stay where they don't feel truly happy or where they don't feel they can support the community or our leaders. All people should be treated equally, regardless of who they love. I am an ally. I am not gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, pansexual, intersex, or asexual. I just support this thought that everyone should have equal rights. Andrea Wilson, Neepawa, Manitoba. And additional letters on page 17. Why can they not be themselves? I commend Bryce Parrott for the reasonable manner in which he presented the issue of the flags that should be flown in Neepawa in the June 13th edition. It is important that we are open to discussing varying views in our society. For some time I have been questioning why it has become almost popular to change one's gender. Humans, as all mammals, are either born male or female. However, there can be from 1 to 4% that are born with some variation in their sexual makeup. During World War II, women showed that they could do almost any job needed. Since then, the opportunities for women and men began to expand in all areas of life, regardless of their gender. In my family, my younger brother enjoyed and excelled in the kitchen, where I preferred being outside or in the barn. These interests continued into adulthood. However, often they don't. It is known that a teen's brain continues to develop, and their interests often change through the teen years. With that in mind, why the pressure to attach labels to them that might cause challenges later? Why can they not just be themselves? A lesbian friend of mine made an interesting comment to me, saying that no one should make any physical changes until at least 20 years of age. As Bryce mentioned, there seems to be considerable anxiety and depression. This also is concerning when one compares their lifestyle to what their grandparents endured. Perhaps there is a different reason. Blaise Pascal, who made significant contributions in the area of mathematics, science, and philosophy, wrote in the 17th century on the subject of mankind's craving for meaning and happiness. His ideas have been paraphrased to say, "There is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every man," or as Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Muriel Gami. And another letter, I was startled and very disappointed to read Bryce Parrott's letter in the Neepawa Banner and Press this past week. While the opening few sentences initially seemed like a good faith argument to celebrate our Filipino community, it quickly became clear that the true purpose was to make false claims about the LGBTQIA+ community. The letter contains 6 sentences pertaining to why we should fly the Filipino flag, and 19 sentences about how the writer believes the LGBTQIA+ community are confused, suicidal, and pose a threat to society and children. What's even more concerning is these views were platformed without any note from the paper's editorial team. The writer nods to the higher rates of suicide in LGBTQ1A+ people, but is dismissive of the known fact that acceptance and respect lowers these rates. He also claims that many in the community are uncomfortable with the ideology of LGBTQIA+, and that the pride flag does not represent the community of Neepawa. As someone who was raised here and has returned to live and work in Neepawa, I love this community. I love the people and the work I do here. I don't believe that Bryce speaks for the majority of the community in his letter, which is at best misinformed and at worst actively harmful. My experiences here have been that Neepawa is a loving and supportive community, and while no community is free of prejudice, that the majority of people here act from a place of acceptance and respect. That is why I am even more disappointed to see this kind of widely debunked anti-LGBTQIA+ rhetoric platformed in a local paper without any comment. I've seen many other articles and letters tagged with a note that the writer's opinions are their own and not reflective of the values of the Neepawa Banner and Press. This letter is published without any such comment. The opinions published last week do not reflect facts, and I certainly hope they don't reflect the true spirit of the majority of the community. And to the writer's initial thoughts about celebrating the Filipino community during Filipino Heritage Month, I say absolutely. Why not also fly the Filipino flag during June, as well as the pride flag? Instead of using pretend support for the Filipino community to harm the LGBTQIA+ community members, why not instead reflect how lucky we are to have so much to celebrate in June? Helen Drysdale's recipe, what's for supper? We have lemon baked pork chops, mozzarella mashed potatoes, and ginger baked apples this week. Rainbows and Love, Your Listening Ear by Delcy Martin. When I was a teenager growing up in a small town, I had never heard of pride. I didn't know what it meant to live openly, safely, or authentically. Today, pride is more than just a celebration. It's a lifeline for many. Pride started out as a social movement with the Stonewall protests in 1969 and has become a global movement. It was born out of resistance and today continues to shine a light on the ongoing fight for equity, safety, and dignity. Pride is a celebration of diversity. Humans are not cookie cutters meant to fit into a certain mold. We are a beautiful mosaic of differences. You see, there isn't one right way to be. That's like saying everyone should be right-handed. It's not practical and not realistic to assume that everyone should be the same way. So you may be asking, why do we still need pride? Don't we have equity already? Equity can be taken away as quickly as it can be given, and while many 2S LGBTQIA individuals have individual rights and legal protections, that doesn't always translate over into everyday acceptance or safety. 2S LGBTQIA youth are still highly represented amongst the homeless population. Trans and gender diverse folks still face higher rates of violence and unemployment. Equity is not a permanent state and needs to be defended. In Canada, we are seeing rising anti-queer sentiment as a response to what is happening in the States. We may feel secure in Canada, but it doesn't mean the security will last. Celebrating diversity includes amplifying voices within the 2S LGBTQ plus community who face additional marginalization, like Black, Indigenous, Two-Spirit, and trans people. Pride helps people, especially young people, see that they are not alone. Suicide rates amongst 2S LGBTQIA youth are undeniably high, and these rates drop dramatically when youth feel seen. When our youth know that their identities are valid, it gives them space to explore this identity in a safe way. When we make the choice to be parents, we don't say to ourselves, I want a kid who is blonde, good at sports, and an excellent academic. Parenting is not Build-A-Bear. We don't get to choose who our kids are. So we have a choice. We either show up for our kids and validate who they are, or we deny them those rights and start investing in a whole lot of counseling and literally put our kids' lives at risk. Pride is about protecting our future generations and helping them grow up in a world surrounded by love, equality, and openness. Isn't that what all parents want for their children? Pride is for everyone to celebrate. Pride is about love in all its glory. It's an invitation for everyone to celebrate love, inclusion, and freedom. Allies are an essential part of Pride. Pride is about community, and everyone needs an accepting community, and our allies show everyone how a community can surround someone with love and build them up. When allies speak up in conversations and challenge homophobia or transphobia, or support inclusive policies, it helps reduce stigma. This is especially important in spaces where members of the 2S LGBTQIA community feel safe. If you are an ally, know that you are so appreciated, embraced, and loved by those around you. So this month, I ask you to reflect on the word love and what that means for you in supporting those in your community. Because when we lead with love, we create a world where everyone, no matter who they are or who they love, can belong and thrive. By Delcy Martin, a registered social worker working out of the Wellness Clinic in Brandon. On page 7, it's time to take that step. Rec Facility Committee pleased with initial public response. By Owen Devereaux. There appears to be a huge interest in starting a serious conversation about the future of local recreation. That conversation publicly kicked off on Tuesday, June the 10th at the Yellowhead Hall in Neepawa, with a meeting to explore the need for a new regional rec facility. The meeting was organized by the Neepawa and Area Recreation Facility Committee and guided by Wayne Jacobson. The gathering's intent was to discuss the vision for what might best serve area residents in sport and wellness. But before that discussion could proceed, it needed to be decided if even pursuing the construction of a new facility to replace the Yellowhead Center was even a necessity. The consensus for those who attended the meeting was an overwhelming yes. But with that out of the way, the next matter to discuss was the potential location for a new facility. Jacobson announced the committee had been able to narrow it down to 4 possible locations. Site 1, 5 acres of donated land just southwest of the Tim Hortons on a portion of land nearby what is known to locals as the former Chicken Barn property. Site 2, 4.77 acres exactly west of the current Neepawa Curling Club building. Site 3, 5 acres northwest of Neepawa, which is part of 320 acres purchased by the town for development in 2024. And Site 4, 4 acres with potential growth to the north, located slightly south of the Neepawa Golf and Country Club. All 4 of these choices have their positives and negatives if the construction of a new rec facility proceeds. Those details were explained during the discussion of each plot of land. For Site 1, slightly southwest of Tim Hortons, some of the positives to consider are a location with easy access, as well as the land itself being donated should this project go ahead on this spot. A negative to consider is the cost to install all the water and sewer lines in the location from scratch. In regard to Site 2, exactly west of the current Neepawa Curling Club building, is considered a positive, but access and the slightly smaller amount of acres available to build are viewed as potentially hindering future expansion to the facility. Site 3 at the Project 320 location has plenty of acres available and will be part of a new suburb for Neepawa to be built within the next decade. The exact location in the development for a rec facility has not yet been decided. As for Site 4, close to the Neepawa Golf and Country Club, available space allows for possible expansion of the facility. Proximity to the former garbage dump location and possible traffic concerns were discussed as drawbacks. During the question and answer session from the audience, a comment was also brought up regarding a 5th option located on land much closer to the golf course than the current Site 4 property. It was explained that land is currently privately owned and not, to the best of their knowledge, for sale. It was suggested, however, that inquiries could be made. The meeting concluded with around 90 people who attended being given the chance to share their opinion on the best location. Everyone was given a red and a yellow sticker and told to select their preferred choice. Red was used as the first choice, while yellow indicated the second option. The options preferred were as followed. Site 1, 43 red, first choice, and 26 yellow, second choice. Site 2, 28 red and 16 yellow. Site 3, 4 red and 9 yellow. Site 4, 15 red and 14 yellow. Some individuals chose to only vote for their first and preferred option. It should be noted that this was not an official location vote, but simply a way to gauge the community's thoughts on what they believe would be the best option. There are several other factors to be considered when it comes to the selection of a potential site. After the meeting concluded, Wayne Jacobson spoke with the Banner and Press and noted that he and the board were pleased with this initial response. When you facilitate an open forum, you don't know if you're going to get 20 or 200 people. So I think this is a good turnout. But this is really step 1 in a long process. A chance to generate ideas, generate discussion, and a little bit of feedback, said Jacobson. But the first step in any solution is acknowledging that it's time to take that step. That's what a big part of tonight was all about. The online version of the presentation is expected to be available for viewing in the near future. Once those details are confirmed, the Banner and Press will share the information on how to view it online. There's also a letter to the editor regarding the Recreation Center. I read in the Neepawa Banner and Press that there is a renewed effort in Neepawa to begin the process of constructing a new arena rec center. Kudos to the proponents of this effort, if only their task weren't so daunting. That's why I'm writing. There is a way for Neepawa to have one of the most efficient, most functionally flexible and cost-effective arenas around, being a made-in-Canada building solution that's being used around the world. One only has to do one major thing: get over the first impression of its appearance. What I am suggesting is for Neepawa to adopt the idea of using a sprung structure for its future rec center. That first impression is often taken completely wrong and ultimately to the detriment of the planners. I get it. As a rural prairie dwellers, our first thought when seeing a sprung structure is another canvas Quonset, typical of many temporary or portable sheds used in the ag industry. However, this structure couldn't be further from one of those, besides appearance. I must interject here that I am not affiliated with the Sprung Company in any way. However, I did consult with them for information while I was a Neepawa counselor. What I learned in that time was eye-opening. From my discussions with Sprung reps and visiting their buildings, I came to realize that the Sprung structure should probably be the new arena for every small town in Canada for a multitude of reasons. Probably the most important reason right off the top is price. Going with a pre-engineered, modularly constructed building eliminates paying for engineering and architects. There are numerous testimonials of reference that state costs coming in at half price of a typical building. Imagine what that really means. It not only results in potential reduced burden on taxpayers, it could mean a more flexible facility with more features catering to more uses. Case in point, it's no secret that the diversity of Neepawa's population has impacted the types of recreation its residents seek to enjoy. By utilizing a structure that costs significantly less from the outset, the town could build a larger facility and fill it with capabilities to convert uses such as collapsible seating to enlarge the floor surface for varying seasonal sports or events. Imagine a high-quality 1,000-seat hockey arena for Titans hockey with actual individual seats that turns into an indoor soccer, basketball, or major event facility with little effort. Needless to say, there are a multitude of advantages for a small community to use one of these structures instead of traditional construction. They state they've constructed over 12,000 buildings in more than 100 countries for virtually any use you can think of. Again, get beyond the visual of a fabric shelter, please. These are not them. Reluctant to sound like a company salesman spewing all the finer details of these buildings, I'll leave it to the reader to go to their website, review their information, and even visit one of their buildings. The final point I'll make is that the proponents of a new arena in Neepawa will have serious struggles along the way. The suggestion contained herein could alleviate a significant number of those struggles if they only employ an open mind. At the very least, go ahead and develop the community's dream facilities, have it costed out utilizing traditional construction, and then, just for shits and giggles, let Sprung come in with their costing for a comparable facility. I think everyone would find it worth the effort. Another letter on page 17 regarding the new rec center. First, thank you to the Regional Rec Event Center committee members for taking on this important initiative when it comes to a new facility for Neepawa and surrounding region. Here are some thoughts on new arena capacity to consider. It was suggested at the meeting of June 10th that we should be building the facility for the projected needs 20 years from now and beyond. I agree. An effort in that regard today is the right thing to do for the economic and functional viability of the project long term. I would like to focus on the arena portion here. For argument's sake, I'll use Dauphin and Verdun as examples. The city of Dauphin has a population of just over 8,000. Their arena seats 1,763 plus standing room. The three largest crowds so far this year were at the Kings playoff run, 1,256, 1,821, and 2,246. The population of Verdun is just short of 3,500. Their arena, opened in 2011, seats 1,200. In their last playoff run, they averaged 1,170 seats sold. Wasn't the population of Neepawa just short of 3,500 when our present 1,200 seat facility was built? So for me, it is just awfully hard to defend or bother to consider any building with less capacity than the present Verdun model or that of our existing rink built 53 years ago. As we sit on the precipice of doubling the population of 50 years ago, if we are not already there, and the inevitable evolution of Manitoba's next city, what are the options? A smaller arena? That Dog Won't Hunt by Ross McBride, Neepawa, Manitoba. And he also has a postscript. Swan River had proposed a $7.2 million retrofit of their existing arena. After the preliminary 7.2 estimate, it increased to $9 million, and they scrapped the project. They are now in the process leading to the construction of a new arena. To be clear, that retrofit estimate was for an arena-only facility. Page 8, Immigrant Settlement Services, Salvation Army partnered to enhance newcomer support in Neepawa. There's a photo. Representatives with the Salvation Army and Neepawa and Area Immigrant Settlement Services have partnered on a new and enhanced partnership program by Joshua Jackson. A new collaboration between the Salvation Army and the Neepawa and Area Immigrant Settlement Services will offer enhanced support and services to newcomers and the wider Neepawa community. The partnership will offer practical assistance and resources available through the Salvation Army to clients who need and request this additional support during their settlement period. NAISS will provide services like orientations, language training, employment support, and other settlement-related assistance to immigrants. The partnership was spurred by a shared commitment to serve the community and to address urgent social challenges. We recognize that by combining our unique strengths, whether that be resources, networks, or specialized services, we could have a greater impact, said Neepawa and Area Immigration Settlement Services Executive Director Ilsa Pineda. Our mutual goals around compassion, dignity, and community support make this natural collaboration, and we are excited about the potential to extend our reach and effectiveness together. This collaboration unites the practical support of the Neepawa Salvation Army alongside the specialized knowledge of Neepawa and Area Immigrant Settlement Services to create a more holistic approach to helping newcomers settle successfully in the area. The partnership aims to provide easier access to essentials, food, clothing, housing support, and cultural orientation in a more welcoming and coordinating environment. For the broader community, it promotes inclusion, builds cross-cultural understanding, and helps newcomers become active, contributing members of the local economy and society. Ultimately, it strengthens the social fabric of Neepawa and supports a healthier, more connected community for everyone, said the executive director. Both organizations plan to facilitate events and programs that promote intercultural understanding, encourage community integration, and build networks among newcomers and the broader Neepawa community. We are excited to invite everyone to our upcoming multicultural event at noon, July 26th at Riverden Park in Neepawa, in collaboration with the Salvation Army, said Pineda. We will also be collecting non-perishable food donations during the event. Please consider bringing an item to support families in need in our community. Neepawa Area Immigration Settlement Services is grateful for the opportunity to work together in support of newcomers in the Neepawa community. This partnership is a reflection of what makes Neepawa so special, a community that cares, welcomes, and uplifts one another. We invite the community to stay engaged, volunteer if they can, and continue showing the generosity and kindness that defines this town, she said. Together, we're not just providing services, we're building a stronger, more inclusive Neepawa for everyone. Former United Church minister returns for special 100th celebration, and there's a picture. Neepawa United Anglican Shared Ministry Church held a very special 100th anniversary service on Pentecost, Sunday, June the 8th. The service was titled 100th Anniversary, Deep, Bold, Daring. Former United Church minister Reverend Joe Ball brought the message to the service with input from numerous church members. Featured above, under the direction of Brian Bailey, accompanied by Blair Chapman, the choir. 3 members of the present choir were part of the choir 50 years ago in 1975. for the 50th anniversary when they sang The Great Parade, a musical piece about dedication and commitment. Margaret Lawrence Home is open for the summer by Kyla Wachowski of the Margaret Lawrence Home. What if I told you that one of Canada's most influential female writers, who was progressive, thoughtful, and ahead of her time, was born and raised right here in Neepawa? My name is Kyla Wachowski, and I am entering my final year of a Bachelor of Science degree in Human Kinetics at the University of Ottawa this fall. I find joy in volunteering. I am currently coaching Neepawa Timbit soccer and being active on campus in a variety of clubs, reading romance and science fiction, playing piano, and spending time with loved ones. I'm very honored to be taking on the full-time role of caretaker and tour guide for this historic site, as well as learning more about our very own Margaret Lawrence. I'm joined by Rebecca Davidson, our part-time team member, who helps ensure the tidiness of the home and that each visit is memorable. I'll admit, when I first visited the Margaret Lawrence Home as a child, I was oblivious to the beauty, history, and intelligence that lived within its walls. From the welcoming veranda to the original woodwork that adds timeless charm to every room, this house is filled with stories, character, and inspiration. At the Margaret Lawrence Home, we invite you to experience her life. Begin your visit with a self-guided or audio tour that brings each room to life. Step into the front room with original furniture, then move to the living room where many of Margaret's original books are on display. In the dining room, you'll find treasured family mementos that offer a deeper glimpse into her personal life. Upstairs, explore the board and research room, filled with fascinating newspaper articles and memorabilia. Don't miss the Margaret Lawrence Room, a tribute to her academic achievements and literary legacy, showcasing just a fraction of her extraordinary impact. Before you leave, be sure to stop by our gift shop, where you'll find a special selection of Margaret's books, including The Stone Angel and This Side Jordan, as well as unique keepsakes like magnets, keychains, postcards, and locally crafted items. They make perfect gifts for both visitors and literature fans. We're committing to making your visit warm and welcoming and unforgettable. For the rest of June, we're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and weekends from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Starting in July, we'll be open 7 days a week with the same hours. Come and explore the life and legacy of Margaret Lawrence at 312 First Avenue, Neepawa. We can't wait to welcome you. A picture of Neepawa's new downtown mini park. Work on the Gillen Schmal Dream Ride Park was completed recently. The Pocket Park was a collaborative effort between Neepawa's Dream Ride and Gillen Schmal agencies, as well as many other helping hands. Another picture, community visit spurs donations to local food bank. From left to right, Riding Mountain MP Dan Mazier, the Honorable Anita R. Neville, and Gladstone United Church Community Food Cupboard Coordinator Laurel McConnell posed for a photo on June the 7th during the Honorable Anita R. Neville's visit to Gladstone. The Lieutenant Governor stopped by the Gladstone United Church Community Food Cupboard for a tour and donation. Around 300 pounds of food was donated by the Lieutenant Governor's Sharing Hope initiative, a program where guests are encouraged to bring non-perishable food items when attending government house events, which in turn get donated to food banks where the Lieutenant Governor visits. Another picture, a step towards improvement. On Wednesday, town crews were working at Mill and Mountain in downtown Neepawa to improve street drainage at that corner. The work was being done in advance of the repaving project between Mountain and First Avenue on Mill Street. That particular block was scheduled to be repaved in 2024, but was delayed. And another photo shows upgrades to On the Go at Neepawa Esso. On page 11, there's a whole page about Happy Canada Day, celebrating the birth of the country. Right around the corner, Canada's Confederation took place on July 1st, 1867. In the present, this day is marked with celebrations both locally and across the country, providing many with a day off to celebrate by partaking in community activities. And there are activities in Neepawa and Minnedosa listed at different times. Neepawa Canada Day celebrations will mostly be at the Flats and Minnedosa, starting at the Minnedosa United Church and then going to the Minnedosa Beach. On page 13, MJHL regular season schedule set for the Neepawa Titans. The Manitoba Junior Hockey League, MJHL, has announced its schedule for the 2025-26 regular season beginning on Friday, September 19th. Opening weekend features 11 games taking place over the course of the weekend, involving 12 of 13 member teams. The Neepawa Titans kick off their schedule on September 20th against the Portage Terriers before heading to Portage to play the following day. The MJHL will continue with two divisions for the 2025-26 season, featuring the MJEU West Dauphin Kings, Neepawa Titans, Northern Manitoba Blizzard, Swan Valley Stampeders, Verdun Oil Capitals, Wayne-Wayne-Capital Wolverines. The MJEU East Division consists of Niverville Nighthawks, Portage Terriers, Selkirk Steelers, Steinbach Pistons, Winkler Flyers, Winnipeg Blues, and Winnipeg Monarchs. Each team will play a 58-game schedule that concludes on Sunday, March 15th, 2026. Neepawa first faces the current MJHL champions, the Northern Manitoba Blizzard, at home on November 2nd. Their largest homestand is 3 games on December 14th, 19th, 20th, and their final home game of the season takes place on March 14th against Swan Valley. And on this page, a correction: St. Rose School grad ceremony will be held at the St. Rose School on Friday, June 20th at 1:30 p.m. The Neepawa Banner and Press apologizes for missing this announcement in our graduation section last week. Cubs and Mavs series features back-to-back ties by Owen Devereaux. When it comes to sports, there is such a thing as two teams being just too evenly matched. But for the Neepawa Cubs and the Minnedosa Mavericks, that concept of competitive equality was recently taken to a bit of an extreme, as they ended up tied in a pair of games. The first of these two matchups was on Wednesday, June 11th in Minnedosa and concluded in a 3-3 draw. Mavericks pitcher Luke Guggen, as well as Lincoln Murray for the Cubs, would have complete game efforts on the mound. Guggen surrendered just 5 hits, while Murray countered with 7. As for strikeouts, it was Murray with the superior results, registering 5 compared to 3 for Guggen. The second game between these clubs on Friday, June the 13th, was in Neepawa and closed out tied at 6-6. This game was much more influenced by the offense, which included a 2-run homer for George McNeil in the top of the first inning. That is already McNeil's 3rd home run of the year for Minnedosa. The Cubs countered in the bottom of the second, bringing around 5 runs in total. Late in the game, however, the Mavs scored a pair of runs in the 5th and 6th innings to take the lead. The Cubs replied with one of their own in the booth of the 6th, and it would remain tied from there. Cole Kapitko and Ryan Gower were each 2 for 3 at the plate for the Cubs. These results create a lot of uncertainty in the middle of the Santa Clara Baseball League standings. Minnedosa is 3rd in the league with a 2-3-3 record, while Neepawa is tied for 4th with the Carberry Royals with identical 2-3-2 records. The Royals' recent games saw a win 13-12 over the Austin A's on Wednesday, June 11th. Carberry's Jared Bridges went 3 for 4 with 3 RBI, while teammate Russell Adrianson knocked out a home run. The next game between these two teams was on Friday, June the 13th. A Woodsey Austin bounced back with a 6-1 victory. For the Royals, Corey Billiart had a huge night, going 4 for 4 with 3 singles and a double. The other series from last week was the Portage Padres and the Plumas Padres. In these games, Portage asserted its dominance over the rest of the league, first hammering the Pirates 16-3 and then following up with a 13-6 result Friday night in Plumas. All these results have the Padres in first overall at 8-1-0 in the standings, while Plumas are still in second place with a 4-3-1 record. And there's a large photo showing George McNeil rounding the bases after hitting a 2-run homer for the Minnedosa Mavericks on Friday, June the 13th, in a game against the Neepawa Cubs. Another letter for the editor by Brad Mummery. I'm writing over concerns I have with the ongoing, long drawn out process of negotiations between the government and the postal union. In the past few weeks, I've had packages canceled through Amazon, and I can't buy from a certain business since the strike action vote because I get my mail delivered to a post office box. It seems to me that the government is using sharp practices in order to force the hand of postal employees to comply, and this is not okay. I think that if the Liberal government can just give away billions of my tax dollars to the useless CBC, then they should be able to come up with a solution to a problem which is obviously affecting our economy in obviously tough times. Bargain in good faith with the Canadian Postal Union. Pay them. It's an essential service, unlike the CBC. Obituaries this week for Elsie Dan Berendt. A memorial service will be held June 28, 2025 at 2 p.m. at the Kingdon Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, Neepawa. And an obituary for Bill Arthur Thompson. Celebration of life will be held by the family at a later date. Also of interest this week, a notice of a by-election for the office of councillor. Notice is hereby given that the town of Neepawa will be taken to elect one councillor from the following duly nominated candidates: Dave Clark and Sherry Grant. Voting places will be open for voting on Wednesday, the 16th day of July, 2025, between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the Town of Neepawa Civic Administration Office. Letter to the editor. Neepawa, a vibrant and diverse community. June has been recognized as Pride Month for decades now, a time to celebrate how far the 2S LGBTQIA+ community has come, but also to reflect on how far we have left to go for equality. Pride was born out of the need to stand up for ourselves against prejudice and not let a narrative be written for us by people who know nothing about our lives. Neepawa and Area Pride was formed because Neepawa is and has always been home to many members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, some who are born here and some who chose Neepawa as a place to set down roots. We are people who have been woven into the fabric of this community for as long as it has existed, whether others recognized it at the time or not. We are people who contribute to all aspects of life. The Pride flag itself serves as a beacon for inclusivity and diversity. To have the Pride flag flown in Neepawa shows what many have known, that Neepawa is welcoming, open-minded, and progressive, a home to all. Our differences are our strengths, allowing for growth and diversity among all residents. Flying the Pride flag does change lives in the most impactful way possible. It shows those who need to see it that they are not alone, that there are allies and people standing up for them even when it gets difficult. Last week's letter to the editor shared misinformed and harmful rhetoric regarding 2S LGBTQ1A+ individuals' mental health that is too important to overlook. When a group such as the 2S LGBTQIA+ community faces discrimination, prejudice, hate, and violence just for being who we are and going about our lives, the toll on mental health can be great. If it is the discrimination that is the problem, not the people being discriminated against. We have made great strides in recent years towards making this country, this province, and this town a welcoming place for everyone. As a community, let's not take a step back now, and in doing so cause the very problem some people claim to be concerned about. June is also recognized as Filipino Heritage Month, and the two designations happily coexist in our community without any need to compete with one another. The tone in last week's letter to the editor does nothing but try to divide two vibrant and overlapping communities. This author fails to recognize that within the Filipino community there is also the Bahaganeri, meaning rainbow, who are strong and resilient and have sought out Neepawa as their home. They are safe and respected as their true selves here. There is no reason to evoke feelings of us versus them. Thank you, the Neepawa Area Pride Committee. Ooh.